Is America hiding a massive obsession it has never openly admitted? And why have two names from South Korea, Jungkook and Taehyung, suddenly become the most serious topic of conversation behind the scenes of the US entertainment industry? That question may sound exaggerated, almost dramatic, even like cheap clickbait. Yet that is precisely where the strangeness lies. The deeper the story is examined, the clearer it becomes that this is not merely about K-pop popularity, not just about a loud global fanbase on social media, and not a fleeting phenomenon that will fade after 1 or 2 tour seasons. There is something far deeper, far more structured, and far more American than simple applause. And when Halsey finally spoke up, with a tone that was anything but casual and with words that felt almost academic, every old assumption collapsed in a single night. America, a country that for decades has exported pop culture to the rest of the world, now finds itself in an unfamiliar position. It is no longer just the stage provider, but the captivated audience. The names Jungkook and Taehyung are no longer spoken with a sense of foreignness or novelty, but with a feeling of ownership, as if they have become part of America's own musical narrative. The question is, when did this shift begin? And why did Halsey, an artist who deeply understands the mechanics of the Western music industry, choose to reveal it now? In an interview that initially sounded relaxed, Halsey dropped a sentence that left newsrooms across multiple outlets silent. She was not promoting an album. She was not defending an old collaboration. She was talking about pride, a kind of pride that, in her words, no longer recognizes borders. The sentence sounded beautiful, almost poetic, but beneath it lay a far more serious meaning. She was speaking about Jungkook and Taehyung as figures who are not merely loved, but studied. Not only by fans, but by the industry itself. America, Halsey said, no longer sees BTS as a foreign group that succeeded in the Western market. Instead, it sees them as a blueprint for the future. And among the 7 powerful names in BTS, Jungkook and Taehyung occupy a very specific, very strategic position, one that, according to her, is being carefully calculated. This statement immediately triggered another question. If this is true, why is the public only hearing about it now? What has been kept hidden all this time? The answer begins to emerge when the conversation shifts to the tour that is about to begin. This tour is not merely a series of concerts. It is a massive project prepared with a level of precision rarely seen, even by BTS standards. Halsey described it as almost obsessive preparation. Every detail, from stage flow to internal communication and the way emotions are delivered to the audience, has been designed not just to entertain, but to create dialogue. And this is where the communication between BTS and Halsey becomes a focal point once again. Their relationship, long assumed to have ended after their previous collaboration, never truly stopped. According to Halsey, that communication has now continued with a far more serious tone. There are no longer casual conversations about songs or visual concepts alone. What they discuss now is direction, impact, and the position of BTS, especially Jungkook and Taehyung, within a rapidly shifting global music landscape. This revelation shocked many, because the public had believed that relationship was temporary and purely professional. Even more surprising was Halsey's admission regarding how American media has begun to treat the names Jungkook and Taehyung. She acknowledged that in many closed-door discussions, the two are no longer referred to as idols, but as cultural phenomena. This is a label rarely given, and never lightly. It is usually reserved for figures capable of changing consumption patterns, mindsets, and even industry standards. And when Halsey said this with a serious expression, it was impossible to dismiss. America, with all its pride in innovation and originality, appears to have found something it deeply admires and perhaps envies in Jungkook and Taehyung. It is not only about vocals or visuals, but about how they build identity without losing humility, about how they bring personal narratives to a global stage without sounding manufactured. Halsey described this as a form of pride that goes beyond the individual. Pride in the courage to remain authentic within the brutal pressure of the industry. But the story does not stop at admiration. There is another clue that has made many music analysts raise their eyebrows. In a portion of the interview that almost slipped by unnoticed, Halsey mentioned that BTS would continue something that was left unfinished with a phenomenal figure in the United States. She did not name names. She did not give a timeline. But her tone changed, softer, more careful, as if she knew that one extra word could ignite a storm of speculation. This statement immediately raised a massive question. Are BTS, with Jungkook and Taehyung at the forefront, preparing a collaboration that could reshape the global music map? And if so, why does everything about it feel so secretive? Some industry observers have begun connecting Halsey's words with patterns that have recently emerged. Exclusive invitations, closed-door meetings, tightly structured schedules, and a subtle shift in media narratives. Jungkook and Taehyung are no longer discussed solely as members of BTS, but as individuals with cross-genre and cross-cultural appeal. America, long known for separating world music from the mainstream, now seems to be slowly erasing that line. Emotion is an element that cannot be ignored in this story. Halsey did not speak like a business partner. She spoke like someone witnessing something rare. She talked about small moments, about conversations that never make headlines, about the silence before major decisions are made. All of this creates the impression that what is coming is not just a music project, but a cultural event. Jungkook and Taehyung, meanwhile, continue to present a calm that almost clashes with the surrounding noise. They offer no bombastic statements. They reveal nothing. And that, paradoxically, is where the tension lies. Their silence feels heavy with meaning, as if something is being assembled with extreme care. America may be obsessed, but this obsession is not empty admiration. It is an obsession born from recognition that Jungkook and Taehyung possess something that cannot be replicated, something no industry machine can manufacture. Halsey referred to it as honesty you can feel, a quality she believes is becoming increasingly rare in modern music. When asked whether the collaboration with that phenomenal American figure will truly happen, Halsey only gave a faint smile. A smile that did not answer the question, but instead confirmed it. And there lies the greatest shock of all. Not in an official announcement, not in a teaser or a press conference, but in the realization that something massive is moving behind the scenes and the public is only being given fragments to piece together. Will this be the moment when Jungkook and Taehyung not only conquer the American stage, but also change how America views global music? Or is this merely the beginning of a new chapter, far more complex, more emotional, and more daring than anything we have imagined? One thing is certain. After Halsey's revelation, no one can pretend this is just hype. America may not be saying everything out loud yet, but the signs are far too clear to ignore. And when that tour finally begins, with preparation described as perfect, the world may witness not just a concert, but a declaration. A declaration that old boundaries have fallen, and that America's obsession with Jungkook and Taehyung is no longer a question, but a reality waiting to explode. And yet, the deeper this story goes, the more it becomes clear that what is happening cannot be explained through numbers alone. Chart positions, streaming records, sold-out stadiums. America has seen all of that before. What unsettles and fascinates the industry this time is something far less tangible, something that executives struggle to quantify, but cannot ignore. It is the emotional gravity Jungkook and Taehyung carry when they enter a room, a studio, or a conversation. According to sources close to multiple US labels, discussions involving their names no longer revolve around if, but how far. Behind closed doors, the conversation has shifted from market testing to legacy building. This is where Halsey's words begin to feel less like admiration and more like a warning. She hinted that America is not just watching Jungkook and Taehyung, it is studying them, dissecting the way they connect with audiences without diluting their identity. In an industry that often demands compromise, BTS has done something almost rebellious. They have expanded globally without surrendering their emotional language. For Jungkook and Taehyung, that language is deeply personal, almost disarmingly sincere, and it resonates in ways that defy cultural boundaries. One US producer, speaking anonymously, described it as a rare psychological alignment. Audiences do not simply listen, they feel seen. This is precisely why the upcoming tour has become such a focal point of speculation. The preparation, described by insiders as meticulous to the point of obsession, is not about perfection for perfection's sake. It is about control over narrative, over timing, over emotional impact. Every pause, every transition, every moment of silence is reportedly being designed to speak as loudly as the music itself. Halsey's continued involvement, even if unofficial, has fueled theories that this tour is not an endpoint, but a launch pad. Her communication with BTS, particularly with Jungkook and Taehyung, is said to revolve around sustainability rather than spectacle. She reportedly emphasized that America is ready for something deeper, something that challenges its own industry norms. If true, this would explain the sudden seriousness in tone, the careful wording, the deliberate lack of leaks. What makes this even more intriguing is how Jungkook and Taehyung themselves have changed, or perhaps revealed, something new. Observers have noted a subtle shift in their public demeanor. Not louder, not more aggressive, but more grounded. Their confidence no longer feels reactive. It feels inevitable. This quiet assurance has only intensified America's fixation. In a culture accustomed to self-promotion, their restraint reads as power. Media analysts in the US have begun to ask uncomfortable questions. Is America witnessing the rise of artists who no longer need Western validation, even as they dominate Western stages? Is this why the obsession feels different, almost urgent? Jungkook and Taehyung are not chasing acceptance, they already have it. What they're doing instead is redefining what acceptance looks like. Then there is the matter of the rumored collaboration. Halsey's carefully chosen phrase, "something left unfinished," has taken on a life of its own. Industry veterans point out that such language is rarely accidental. It suggests history, intent, and continuity. Whoever this phenomenal figure is, the implication is clear. This will not be a superficial pairing, but a convergence of influence. A moment designed not just to trend, but to endure. The emotional weight of this possibility cannot be overstated. For fans, it represents validation long overdue. For the industry, it represents disruption. And for Jungkook and Taehyung, it represents a crossroads. Every move from this point forward will be interpreted not just as entertainment, but as statement. What remains striking is how little they say. In an era of constant updates and strategic oversharing, their silence feels almost defiant. Yet that silence is not empty. It is filled with intention, with preparation, with an awareness that timing is everything. America may be obsessed, but it is also waiting. Waiting for the moment when speculation turns into certainty, when hints turn into history. If this tour unfolds as insiders suggest, it will not simply reinforce BTS's global dominance. It will mark a recalibration of cultural power. Jungkook and Taehyung will not be guests on the American stage. They will be co-authors of its next chapter. And perhaps that is what unsettles the industry the most. Not that America loves them, but that it can no longer imagine the future of pop music without them. As the countdown continues and the silence stretches, one truth grows louder with each passing day. This is no longer a question of whether America is obsessed. The real question is what happens when that obsession finally meets its moment. And when it does, the shock may not come from what Jungkook and Taehyung reveal, but from how much the world realizes it has been waiting for them all along. As that moment draws closer, the atmosphere surrounding Jungkook and Taehyung feels increasingly charged, as if the industry itself is holding its breath. There is a growing sense that whatever comes next will not arrive with the usual fanfare.
No dramatic condoms, no obvious leaks, no careful staged hype cycles.
Instead, everything points toward a reveal that will feel almost quiet at first, only to expand in impact once its meaning fully sinks in. This approach alone sets them apart in an ecosystem that thrives on noise and conversations among American music executives. There is an unspoken acknowledgement that Jungkook and Taehyung represent a shift that cannot be reversed. They are not anomalies to be studied and then replicated. They are outliers that expose the limits of existing formulas. Halsey's remarks have only sharpened this realization. Her insistence that pride can exist without borders challenges the long-standing hierarchy of global pop, where validation has traditionally flowed in one direction. Now, that current seems to be moving both ways, and in some cases, reversing entirely. What fascinates analysts most is the balance Jungkook and Taehyung maintain between vulnerability and control. On stage, their performances carry an emotional openness that feels raw and immediate. Off-stage, their discipline and restraint signal an acute awareness of how power operates in the industry. This duality confounds expectations. America is used to choosing one narrative or the other, the tortured artist or the calculated star. Jungkook and Taehyung refuse that binary, and in doing so, they complicate the story in a way that keeps audiences, critics, and executives perpetually engaged. The upcoming tour is increasingly viewed as a narrative device rather than a mere performance schedule. Each city is rumored to represent a chapter, each setlist a carefully structured argument about connection, identity, and endurance. If these rumors are accurate, the tour will function less as a victory lap and more as a thesis statement. It will ask audiences not just to cheer, but to reflect. That alone explains why preparation has been described as relentless. This is not about avoiding mistakes. It is about ensuring that every moment communicates intention. Halsey's role, whether visible or behind the scenes, continues to intrigue observers. Her familiarity with both the vulnerabilities and the machinery of the American music system gives her words a credibility that is difficult to dismiss. When she speaks of seriousness, she is not referring to tone alone, but to stakes. She understands that a collaboration at this level would not merely add to resumes. It would redefine alliances. It would signal a future where creative authority is shared rather than centralized. For Jungkook and Taehyung, that future appears to be something they are approaching with caution rather than haste. Their silence is strategic, but it is also emotional. It suggests respect for timing, for context, and for the audience's intelligence. They seem to trust that meaning does not always need immediate explanation. Sometimes, it needs space to resonate. As speculation intensifies, so does the emotional investment of fans around the world. Yet, even this devotion feels different from past moments of global hype. There is less desperation for validation, less urgency to prove worth. Instead, there is a quiet confidence that Jungkook and Taehyung are exactly where they are meant to be. This confidence is contagious, and it may be the most unsettling element for an industry accustomed to controlling narratives. America's obsession, then, is not rooted in novelty. It is rooted in recognition. Recognition that Jungkook and Taehyung embody a convergence of artistry, discipline, and emotional intelligence that feels increasingly rare. Recognition that their influence cannot be confined to genre labels or market categories. And recognition that their choices, especially now, will ripple far beyond music. When the next chapter finally reveals itself, whether through a collaboration, a tour moment, or a statement made entirely through sound and silence, it is unlikely to arrive as a shock in the traditional sense. Instead, it will feel inevitable, as though all the signs had been there all along, waiting to be understood. The real surprise may lie in how deeply America and the world has already been transformed by the anticipation alone, and so the story continues, suspended between what is known and what is deliberately withheld.